Hello, Stitchy friends. How's everybody doing? Today is actually Saturday, what is today? April 25th, 2026. And I am here to do a little Flosstube Extra with you again. The last extra I did was me kitting up a mystery full coverage project, and I think I'm ready to start it. I've waited long enough. I think it's time. So I think we're gonna go ahead and get this project ready and start it together today. So I'm super excited. Thank you for joining me. If you didn't watch that kitting up video or you don't know what I'm talking about, I am going to be doing a full coverage piece that's gonna be a mystery. I'm not gonna share what the design is or who the designer is, where it came from, but I'll just have you sort of guess as we go along on the process of stitching it. So it'll be a while before you can get some clues of what it's gonna be, but I think it will be fun. And I'm ready. I was missing a few flosses when I kitted everything up, and that arrived from 123 Stitch 2 days ago. And so I'm ready to start, basically. So I've got here, this is a project bag that my friend Dawn Marie from DM's Crafty Vortex here on Flosstube. She sent me, I think it was back over the summer when she sent me this project bag. And it's a huge project bag, like so much room, it's so big. And I didn't really have a big project that I could put in it at the time, and I wasn't really sure what I would use it for. But I love it so much. I love the black and gold, and I love all the motifs on it. It's just super cute. And I decided this is the bag for my full coverage piece. So inside this bag, I've got all of my, she also provided a smaller bag too. So I've got all of my extra flosses in here that I have duplicates of for when I need the second skein. And inside the bag here, hopefully you'll see, I've got all of the kitted up flosses in there on those floss cards that we talked about. Also, isn't this just beautiful inside? It's like purpley, black, pink. I love it. So everything's ready to go in this project bag. And I now have a home for this piece. Now, the other thing is fabric. So I'm going to insert a picture right over here of me holding this full length piece of fabric. It's huge. I've measured it a couple of times, so I'm pretty sure that it's gonna be big enough. I think I'll have about 4-inch margins on either side, up on all 4 sides. So it is bigger than it needs to be, but I wanna have that margin for sure. So that's the picture of me holding the full piece of fabric. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm basically gonna iron it. It's still got some creases in from where it was folded, so I'm not too concerned about getting it really flat because I'm just gonna be stitching with it and crunching it up and like wrinkling it again. But I do wanna give it a good iron before we go. So that's what I'm gonna do now. And yeah, you can join me as I do that process. So the first thing I like to do when I'm ironing is I put down a towel just to provide a little bit of a flat or a soft surface to iron on. So I'm not ironing directly on this little movable island. But typically I would use a flat towel so that it doesn't, mess up the ironing at all. This one has some like wrinkles, not wrinkles, but it's like a ribbed towel. So that's not ideal. It's what I've got today to work with. So it's what we're gonna use. And it's all the space I've kind of got in this tiny apartment. So I'm just gonna kind of iron as we go. I'm gonna lay it out here and just iron to get out some of the creases. Now, I do have my iron hot already and ready to go. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start applying some pressure and seeing what creases I can get out of here. And again, this does not have to be perfect because I'm gonna be stitching this so much, so those wrinkles are going to reappear and appear in different places as I fold and bend and move the fabric as needed as I'm stitching, but it'll at least give me a good starting point to just have it kind of as flat as can be to begin with. So that's what I'm doing here. This is a 25 count easy grid Lugana, and so this is a 25 count easy grid Lugana, and I don't think ironing takes out the the grid lines. I'm hoping not, because that's what I'm doing here. If you've ever had a problem with ironing it and the grid lines came out, definitely let me know. But I don't think it should. I think you have to like really soak it for a while to get those grid lines out. But yeah, 25 count, I'm gonna be stitching this 1/1. And yeah, it's a huge piece, so that's why it's such a big piece of fabric. But just gonna iron this as much as possible to get it smooth. Okay, now we're at the bottom section of the fabric, so I'm all the way down here at the edge. Just ironing these final little creases out in this bottom section. Just because I think it helps to have like a flat, as flat of a surface to start as you can. Now typically I would stitch in hand. That's kind of the method that I go to a lot. But in this piece, because it's so big, I am not going to stitch in hand. I'm going to stitch it using a Q-snap. And so the wrinkles will come back because it will be in the Q-snap and that will leave wrinkles. So I just flipped this over. We're going to iron the other side now. That actually looks pretty good already. We'll just keep moving this up. Iron this last little bit here. You'll have to let me know, do you iron your fabric before you start all of your projects? I typically iron it once before I start and then don't really iron it again until it's completed. I just sort of let the fabric breathe a little bit and don't worry about getting it too flat while I'm stitching, and then iron it at the very end. But what do you do? You'll have to let me know. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. We've got just a little section here at the bottom that I want to iron out. Okay, great. And I think that looks pretty good. It's not perfect, but it's definitely flatter than it was. So this is going to be so hard to show in a video, isn't it? But yeah, that is just basically getting it flat and ready to go. Okay, now that we've got the fabric ironed, the next step in the process is get coffee. Because to start this project, I'm going to need all my focus and I'm going to need a little coffee. It is a very rainy day here in New York today, so I don't really have a lot of plans, and I thought, I'm just going to stay in and start this new project with you. So that involves coffee. But the actual next step in the process is to find the corner. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Now I did sort of measure it out a little bit beforehand, but I'm going to flip the camera around and show you just kind of how I find the corner, and hopefully that will be helpful for you. Okay, we're going to try our best to film this today and see how this goes. But this is the upper right-hand corner of my fabric. So this will be the top and this is the right-hand side. I am going to, what I need to find is where I will begin the pattern. And in my measuring so far, I've put a needle right here to signify that this block right here is going to be the first one that I stitch. Now, how did I come to that conclusion? Well, the pattern is 710 stitches wide by 1,000 stitches high. So on a 25 count, that came out to be roughly 29 inches. When I measured the length of the fabric, it was 39 inches. So I have approximately 5 inches on either side of the fabric. And from there, what I do is I basically measure in from the side. So here we've got roughly 5 inches, and then measuring from the top. I don't want to include the serged edge. I want to make sure I have plenty of space without the serged edge. So that's about 4.5, but that's fine. That's enough of a margin. And so then I put my needle in there to signify that's where I'm going to begin. It also helps me to know how to position my Q-snap when I put it in the Q-snap, so that I know this will be where my first stitch is and it needs to be visible in the Q-snap. Now, just to be safe, because this is a huge piece, I did actually count, because there's 710 stitches wide. I did actually count from here. I counted the squares all the way over till I got to 71, which would be 710 stitches. And on this side of the fabric, I do have enough space. It kind of ends with about 4 inches to spare on this side. So I should be good there as well. I also counted vertically. So that's 1,000 stitches, and I counted down from this mark, I counted 100 squares, and I still had about 4 or 5 inches at the bottom as well. So I think this piece is a fabric is big enough. I won't be able to use it for anything else, and that's okay, but it'll be for this piece. So that's kind of how I find my starting point there. I also have a tool that I received from Acorns and Threads from a friend, Danielle, and I use this for regular projects all the time because it's a corner gauge basically. So you set this in the corner of your project, and it basically tells you where the 3-inch mark is. So I have 3 inches this way and 3 inches this way. If you wanted it to be just 2 inches, then you just slide this up and over until you got to the 2-inch mark, and then I would start right there. So this is super handy for any type of starts that aren't gigantic. Now this one was a little different because I needed 5 inches, and because I had the extra space, I wanted to allow that. So I didn't actually use this. I just used my little measuring tape to measure that out. So that is my corner right here. That's where I will start the piece. And I'm gonna grab my Q-snap now and show you how I put that in. Okay, I'm back with my Q-snap supplies, and I don't have multiple Q-snaps, so I basically just use the same one over and over again. This is an 11 by 11, which is the size that I like for full coverage because I feel like it's a big enough space to work in and gives you a lot of room to move, but it's not so big that you are working around a big space. Anyway, this was on my Amy Stewart piece that I have, so I figured I would just share that real quick here. This is how far I got to on that piece. You can see all the threads that I'm using that are dangling here, but yeah, that's the Amy Stewart piece and how far I got on that. So I moved this off the Q-snap, and I'm getting ready to put the new one in. Now you'll see here I have these like little felt pieces, and the reason I like that is it gives a little cushion for the stitches. When I'm snapping these on over top of stitches, I like to just have something a little softer to kind of soften the blow to the stitches so it doesn't flatten them out quite as much. And so I just use these little felt strips that I cut from felt I purchased on Amazon, and basically slide that in there around the snap, so when I snap it on, it gives a little buffer there. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I do that now. Okay, so I've got my fabric. I know the starting point here, and I like to stitch in the well, meaning that my fabric is on the bottom of the Q-snap. So when I end my threads on the back, which I don't actually know if I'll be ending my threads on the back of this piece or not. So maybe that's a bad idea. Maybe I should just do it regular on the top, now that I'm thinking about it. Well, I'm just going to stick with the method that I typically do, and then if I need to change it, I can. So I have the fabric underneath the Q-snap. I know where my starting point is, so I know that's where I want to be able to stitch from. And I like to leave a little bit of room so I don't have to be working right up against the edge. And what I do is I basically just fold the fabric over and put one of these around the fabric. And then clamp it on. And that's the first side. Then I do the same for the second side here. So just kind of fold it over a little bit, put the felt around it, and clamp this on. So now we have 2 sides done. Then I'll do the bottom section next. This is where it gets a little harder because this is such a big piece of fabric. So there's a lot down here that I need to deal with, but same process. Sorry for the noise. This is not a great tutorial, but this is not meant to be a tutorial. This is just kind of showing you how I do it, which is very bare bones. But pull that over, put the felt on, and snap it on. And then we've got one last side. That's the bottom section here. Again, lots of fabric to wrangle. So I just kind of pull it over the best I can and then put the felt over top and snap this on. And now you'll see that this is not perfectly tight or anything, but luckily with the Q-snap, you can just sort of pull and position it as you need and make it as tight as you want to. So now we've got this in a Q-snap here. We've got my upper right-hand corner. We've got Winston's hairs on the fabric already. His hairs are like baked into every single one of my projects, but yeah. So now I'm gonna figure out what to do with this excess fabric, which is down here. Hopefully you can see all of that. I need to figure out what to do with that, and then I'll get this set up on my stand, and we're just about ready to get started stitching. So I will see you in a bit. Okay, now I'm gonna flip this camera around and show you my stitching spot of how I like to stitch on these full coverage pieces. And this is just what works for me in this little space that I have. So it probably is not the most ideal or beneficial for everybody, but it's how I like to stitch. So I'm gonna turn this around now and show you guys. So here's my chair. This is my Gus's Custom Creations floor stand that I purchased and absolutely love. It's so adjustable. You can see all of these knobs. You can move this like up and down from side to side. You can raise the height of this here. It's a really great stand, but I have it set to this height here so that I can just set the Q-snap with the full coverage piece on it, and then I'll be able to stitch two-handed right here in the top corner where I'm going to start. So I kind of pull that in a little closer once I'm actually sitting in the chair, and that's my little stitching spot. I've got my coffee right here. I've got a little stand here that holds some stitching supplies, and yeah, this is where I stitch. I also have my magnifier light right here, which will help and add additional light if I need it, first of all, but if I do need magnification, then I can use that. I'm not sure with 25 count if I will or not, hopefully not, but yeah, so that is my sort of little stitchy spot. Okay, as you can see, I am here in my stitchy spot, and Winston is here with me. He's ready to stitch. I think I finally have everything set up how it needs to be for this video. This is quite the setup. I don't know that I'll be able to do this every single time because there's just a lot involved with it. I've got this camera here that I can sort of talk to. I've got my iPhone filming behind me, which is trying to get a closer up shot of the stitching. So I will try to put that video maybe up here in the corner of this video, just up there so you can see it as we go, just so you can see the stitching as well and kind of hear me talk to you at the same time. And then I'm also going to start a video recording of my iPad just so you can see a little bit of the pattern and kind of as I talk through what colors I'm using and what I'm stitching, you'll be able to see just a tiny little bit of the pattern, which this pattern is huge, so you're not going to be able to stitch the pattern from this tiny little bit. But I'm going to go ahead and start this screen recording now to get that going on my iPad, and I'll pop that somewhere on the screen as well so you can kind of see that also. So the first thing I will point out is that I use Markup RxP for this. So on my iPad, I have the diagonals kind of marked out. So you can see the red line that goes across, that's where the diagonal will start. Obviously, this first diagonal is more like a triangle because it's just smaller, but that's kind of how I like to stitch. Now, we already went through my Q-snap, we already went through my stand, so you sort of know how that is. I also have these size 28 needles that I ordered on Etsy from a seller that I absolutely love. They came really cheap as well. I think from, I can't remember what country, maybe Venezuela, but I really love these needles and they're perfect for full coverage because it came with so many. There's 100 needles in this pack, so I'm not gonna run out, and it's easy to kind of grab one and go through it. So I'll try to put that link below if I can find it on Etsy. The other thing I have, which I'm going to try using for the first time, are these needle minders. Now, these are called Needle Park Avenue, and I believe they came from, I can't remember what the name of the Etsy shop is, but this is what they look like here. And basically, it's a way for you to sort of, when you park your thread, to stick your needle in this so that it doesn't just dangle around the needle and get tangled in other things, but you can kind of keep it organized row by row by parking it in this needle minder. So I've never used this before on full coverage, but I am going to try it today. So I'm going to go ahead and stick this on my fabric here. I think I'm going to stick it that way, although I don't know specifically which way it will go, but you can see it now. So but the idea is when I park the thread, I can just stick the needle in this little foam section here, and then I'll be able to pull it out once it's ready to go for the next row. So that's the equipment I've got. I've also, yeah, like I said, I've got my needles. I have my scissors that I'll be using. I've got my floss over here, and I've got the pattern. So I think we're ready to go. And of course, my needle minder that I love so much, the Clover one. Okay, so let's go ahead and start stitching. So now we're going to look at my iPad for a second, and I'm going to go ahead and select the first stitch. So I typically like to start with the corner stitch just because, you know, that makes sense. Working in a diagonal from right to left, that's where you would start. So I'm going to select this symbol here. That shows me it is DMC 301. So I'm going to go to my floss cards that I have here and find DMC 301. And I'm going to grab a needle. And basically what I'm going to do, oh, this one I actually already have started. Look at that. See, that's what's nice about these. So I already had this one on a needle ready to go. Maybe it was because I knew it was going to be the first stitch. I'm not sure. But so I've got this ready to go. We're ready to put in our first stitch, 301. So I have this needle marking here where my corner is, and I'm going to pull that out because I know where we're working at now. And I'm just going to go ahead and put in the first stitch. Now for this color, you'll see here that there's a lot of yellow that kind of go all the way down through the diagonal. Because of that, I'm going to start in the, I'm going to start in this like top right corner where that first stitch is. So on the gridded fabric, I'm choosing to have my first stitch be on the corner. So that would be this spot right here. I'm going to try to work two-handed here, but also try to leave room for you to see what I'm doing. I have no idea how this video is going to turn out. There's a chance I might not even post it if it's not great. But I do the one-stranded, oops, and here this got caught already on the needle minder. So maybe we'll have to move that out of the way a little bit more. But I do the one-stranded loop start, so making my first loop, pulling the thread tight to tug it in there, and then pulling it to the back. Take my scissors, cut off the tail. And then I'm going to bury that by putting this back down through. So there's our first stitch. We have it completed. I'm going to mark that off. Stitch number 1. Then it looks like we go 2 stitches over. So I'm going to put that in here. And I'm actually going to pause real quick because I think I'm going to need my magnifying light. Not necessarily the magnifier itself, but I am going to need the light. So I hope that's not distracting on the video. There's a lot going on here, huh? Okay, so I am going to do the second stitch. And basically how I like to work in the diagonals is from right to left. And I do the whole row at one time. So I'm going to do all the stitches in this top row of this color. So there's stitch 1 and stitch 2. We skip a space and do stitch number 3 in this color. Yeah, and that needle minder, we're going to have to figure out how to get it to not catch the thread like that. I wonder if I turn it this way, if that's any better. So there's 1, 2, 3, then we skip 1 and do 3 in a row. And this is just how I do full coverage. There are so many different ways, and honestly, you just need to find what works for you. Like, you just need to figure out what method you enjoy, what works for your brain, what is calming for you, and what helps you get the stitches in. So there's many different ways. This is not like the only way, and definitely have learned this from a number of different channels. Blitz Stitch is one that I really enjoyed and watched, and I think it was Needlebug maybe. I'll have to find the other channel and link it down below. Those are the two tutorials I used that kind of gave me a good starting point on how I like to stitch full coverage now. Okay. Still getting caught on that needle minder, so we'll have to figure that out. So mark off those 3 stitches, and now you see this last stitch here. This is the 10th stitch right on the diagonal, and it's not this color. So I'm going to go down to the next row, and I see that I typically like to work in a stair-stepping method, meaning I do 2 rows of 10 and before I move over in the diagonal. I'll kind of explain it as I go. But so the next stitch of this color will be right here on the edge next to the black line. So I am going to, oops, sorry, I bumped the mic. I'm going to park this thread now because I don't need it anymore. I'm going to try moving this needle minder to this side and see how this goes. So I'm going to park this one in the top slot here. So I've got my thread there, my needle, everything's ready to go for the second row, and that completes all of that color in the top row. So now I'm going to switch colors, and I'm going to go to this next symbol right here, and that is 782. So I'm going to find 782 in my list, in all my floss here. This one, I'm sure I do not have a needle ready to go, and I don't. So this is another brown color. I'm going to take my needle and pull off one strand of this floss here. Pull that back down tighter. And this time I need to thread my needle because I don't have this one ready to go. I really don't know how this video is going to turn out. There are so many factors happening right now. Hopefully now that I've figured out this setup and what needs to be done, it won't be so difficult in the future, but this was really, really tough. People who film these videos all the time, props to you. It's a big setup to get this going. Okay, so we've got 782. I'm going to go ahead. Now there's 2 stitches in this top row. Again, I'm going to start in this one that's closest to the right-hand corner because then I will go over and I'll complete this 10th stitch, and then I'll move down to the second row, and I know you can't see where I'm pointing, but hopefully on the chart you're following, and because that is closest to where the next stitch will go on row 2. So let's just go through it so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So I'm going to start here in this one and do my one-stranded loop start. And here at the beginning, you know, it's always tougher to get started because all the threads that you're using are new. So you have to do the loop start for every single one. Once you get going and you have things parked, then you find yourself, it moves a little bit quicker because you don't have to be constantly doing a new loop start with a new piece of thread. So got that loop, I'm going to pull it down to the back. Sometimes I have to give it a good wiggle to get that sort of loop tied into the back side there. That looks pretty good. And I will cut off the tail. And put that aside. And now I sort of use, sorry if I bumped the mic again, I sort of use my needle to push that tail back down to the other side. So we've got that stitch complete. Now I'm going to go all the way over to the edge and stitch this 10th spot in row number 1, because I complete it one row at a time. And the reason I did it in that direction is because I know in row 2, I have this stitch over here that's kind of off by itself. So all of the rest of these are kind of more moving towards the right-hand side, but this one stitch here is off to itself. So I just chose to go that direction so I could get that kind of squared away. So I'm going to park my thread in the space where that stitch goes underneath, and I'm going to slide that into slot number 2 here. I'm going to leave a little room because I don't think we'll need all of those spaces in the needle or in the needle minder right away. Okay, so we've got 2 threads going. We've got 2 more colors in this first row. I'm going to go ahead and select this flower looking symbol. This is 919. And so we're going to go ahead and find 919. And I think that's in this card. If I could count and do numbers, that would be great. All right, so here's 919. Again, I'm just going to take my needle and find one strand of floss here, pulling it out of 919. Everything else sort of stays in its place. And I'm going to thread this needle. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this start, which you have no idea what it's going to be. I'm very excited to share as I continue going, and I'm so glad you're on this journey with me. It's going to be years and years and years. So it's not going to be a quick reveal, but I hope you're here for the long haul, and I hope we can make some decent progress as we continue going. And yeah, today was a very rainy day in New York. So I thought, you know what, I don't have any other plans other than to do my laundry and go for a run quick before it rains. So I went for a run this morning at 7 o'clock, beat the rain, and fed Winston, took him out for his walk so that he doesn't have to walk in the rain later today. And then I was like, you know what, it's time to start this piece. I made some breakfast. I had eggs and avocado, and now it's time to do this new start. So I'm really grateful that you're here starting it with me. And I don't have any plans tomorrow either, so I'm gonna just probably keep stitching on this piece, and we'll see how far I can get by my next Flosstube video. But I wanted to put these first stitches in with you here, and also just try filming and see how this turns out, because this is gonna be a wild ride. I just know it. Hopefully these videos will get better as I figure out the filming and the cameras and everything. So, oops. So now that one, I'm going to mark off, and I'm just going to go down to that next place where it belongs. And that's kind of an easy color because there's a natural flow. You know, it just kind of goes from top to bottom, from left to right. And so I can just kind of follow that. And then at the end of that, I'll either end my thread or I'll park it. I'll probably park it in this next diagonal down below. So that one is parked and ready to go. I'm going to put that in slot 3 over here. Now this is my first time using the needle parker thing, so we're learning together in this. I'm not a pro at that at all, but I'm going to see how it works. So, okay, this next color is 720, and this is an interesting one because you'll see there's spots kind of all over this diagonal here. So it's kind of tricky to know where I would begin or where I would start this. Even though there's only one spot in the top row, so I kind of have to start there, but I'm probably just going to follow the path of those stitches in that first diagonal and then take a look a little further down and see kind of where they go. I might just end my thread after this diagonal because there's some stitches up here that I could use to bring that thread down. So we'll see. Anyway, this is 720. So I'm going to find that in my floss. Grab another needle. This is why I need so many needles, because, you know, I'm using all these different colors, and because I park and like to park with the needle still attached, that way it makes it easier to just pick it up and go, as opposed to re-threading the needle each time. I lost my train of thought. This is a crazy video. Yeah, but so I like to have needles going on the thread, so that means I need to have lots of needles ready. Okay, I'm going to stop not making any sense, and I'm going to start this next thread here up at the top. Now you'll see these parked threads, sometimes they do get in the way a little bit. You just kind of have to push them over, or I find I just push them over to the side a little bit and just kind of get them out of the way. Typically they stay in place and I don't really have to worry too much about them. But occasionally they'll get in the way and you've got to like reorganize them. 720 is a very pretty orange. I like this color. And you'll see I am using two hands to stitch, so I'm using my left hand underneath the fabric and then my right hand on top. I am right-handed, so my right hand is my dominant hand. For some reason, when I am stitching with two hands for cross stitch, I use my left hand under the piece. It's just easier for me to find the hole for some reason than it is with my right hand. I can't explain it, but just how it is. Okay, so that stitch is now complete. I'm going to park that in the next row. So that's down 2 stitches, over 1. I just said it was easy for me to come up in that hole, and now I couldn't find it. Okay. Okay, now that stitch is not in the next row, right? That's 2 rows to go. So I'm going to put that one all the way down here at the bottom of these threads because we're not going to need that immediately. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to gently pull on the rest of these threads to kind of bring them up to the top so that now we've got sort of the threads that we're working with and the ones that we need kind of a little bit on the top here. So that's it for the first row. We're done. Yay, we've got 10 stitches in. Once I get to row 2, the first thing I do is work in the threads that are parked there to get them kind of out of the way. So this first one that is parked is this one here, right? 919. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that one back out of the needle parker and make sure that it's on the right side of all the floss here. And I'm going to fill that one in. So I don't need to start my loop start. I can just go. And I think Winston is going to bark because he heard the door going. I don't know if you can hear his little growls or not. So completing that one and parking. So now this one is in the very next row, so that we're going to use in the same row as the orange thread we just used. So I'm going to park it one above that one, and that one will just kind of sit there and be ready to go. Now the next one we are going to use is this one here, and I'm going to make sure I'm on the right side of the thread. So I'm going to highlight this color, which I believe is this one, and I'm going to do all these stitches in that second row. So I'm going to do this initial one here, which was where we had parked the thread. And then we skip 2 and put in 1 stitch. Okay, and then we skip 2 again and put in the final 2 stitches in that row. Sorry, I'm getting used to full coverage again, and it's a different type of stitching and different way, especially using 2 hands again. I haven't done this in a while because I stitched in hand the entire time I was in Florida, so it's relearning this skill for me too. Now for these 2 at the end, I did both the half crosses first, and then I'm coming back to do the top leg. And the reason I did that is because the stitch underneath this that I need to go to next is closest to the left. So I want to end on this side, on the left side, so that I'm ready so that I'm closer to where this next parked thread will be. So pull this in right here, get that parked, and I'm gonna, since that is in the next row that we'll be stitching, I'm gonna park that right above the other two. And then we've just got one more color left that is in this second row here. And so I'm gonna do this first stitch. Now, because we've done 2 rows of 10, that means that the next row I'm going to move in 2 stitches. That's just the way that I do diagonals. I find the stair-stepper method to be a little bit easier, and it doesn't result in any lines. When I was doing straight diagonal stitching, I could sometimes see the lines of where those diagonals were. This I found kind of helps to alleviate that a little bit. And you'll see as I go further that I don't always follow that rule to a T. So it varies. But because my next stitch will be in 2 stitches, I'm going to do half crosses for the rest of the stitches in this row. And that way I can end back where I started on the left-hand side. So it'll be closer to where the next stitch will go in row 3. I don't know if this is making sense or if this is just confusing you more. I hope it's not confusing, but it very well could be. And I know this is not the clearest image of these like tiny stitches. I think that's as close as I can get without getting super, super blurry. So I apologize for that. But I did all the half crosses of those stitches that were left in that color. And there's just those 3. So I'm going to fill those, check those off. And now the next stitch of this color, you'll see there's 2 in a row in row 3. But because I'm moving in 2 stitches, I'm not going to worry about that one all the way to the left. So I'm going to park my thread right here underneath the 2 horizontal lines symbol, because that's where I'm going to be doing the start of the next row. So I'm going to park that because it's in the next row and ready to go. I'm going to look at my stitches, and I think that looks pretty good actually. The coverage I'm kind of liking on 25 count. This is my first time stitching on a 25 count with 1/1, and I think the coverage is looking pretty good. So I'm happy with that. But just kind of like making sure my stitches are all in order, pushing anything around that needs to be pushed or moved, just for good housekeeping. Okay, then in row 2, there's only 1 symbol left. So I'm going to click on that, and we're going to go 920. Didn't we already do 920? Oh no, that was 720, I think. Okay, so 920. Yeah, I don't think we did. I think we had 919 maybe and 720, but no 920. So again, I'm just going to get 1 strand of the floss from 920 here. Pull this off of my card. Thread the floss. And again, this is a slower method. This is not for speed stitching. If you want to have a very fast full coverage and you want to get the stitches done as quickly as possible, this is not going to be the method for you. This is a more slow, methodical way of stitching, but it really just works for me and how my brain needs to look at full coverage, because really you're only dealing with a 10 stitches in a row at a time, and the rest of the pattern you don't have to worry about. And that helps make it more manageable for me, because I'm not focused on like, oh my goodness, I have this huge piece of 700 stitches wide that I need to do, and where do I bring the next color, and how do I choose what color to put in next, and all these things that can just get in the way of the actual stitching. And this also, I do think my stitches look a little bit neater when I do it in this way, because you're stitching right next to each other. So you're not traveling, there's not as many threads to worry about behind the piece. So it's easier to kind of find the hole and, sort of make progress without having to dodge all of those threads behind as well. Okay, so that stitch is now complete. Now you'll see there's a couple other stitches in this diagonal, so I would bring my thread down and park them down there. So that's, I'm going to count down to where I need to. And I'm going to park that thread. Now, since that thread is not in the next row, again, I'm going to take it and park it all the way up here at the top to kind of separate what I have to do and what's kind of next on the list, if that makes any sense, because I won't be using that right away in the next row. So that is going to kind of just be hanging out there until I get to the next row. And I think you lost my needle threader now. See if I can move that up a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about. So basically I have the next row down here and then the row underneath that up top. So again, now we're ready for row number 3. What I'm going to do is take the first stitch, the first thread on the right hand side that is parked here, and I'm going to pull that out, and I think that pulled out another one too, but that's okay. I'm going to highlight that on my pattern so I know what I'm working with. And this is the one that we're just doing kind of 4 easy stitches in a diagonal, so that one's very simple. But I'm going to complete this stitch here, and I'm going to park the thread. Now you might say, like, why don't you just stitch that final stitch and end those 4 stitches? But I just like to go in a methodical way and I like there to be some order to it. So I'm going to wait, and I'm going to park that up at the top because that will be in the next row. The next stitch here that I'm going to work on is this brown one, light brown. And that is this one here. So I'm going to complete that first stitch in row 3. Then we skip 1 and go to the next row, or sorry, the next stitch, not next row. And those are the only 2 stitches of that color in row 2 for me. And I park my thread directly under that last stitch. Put that there, and I'm just going to run that under the other threads that are waiting and park it up here at the top because that is the next row. Okay, next we've got this orange color. That's what's next to be stitched. So I'm going to, and you'll see occasionally you have to move some of the other parked threads or the needles out of the way, and that's okay. I don't mind doing that. Is this the right color here? Yes, it is. Okay, so I'm going to do this stitch, and because the next kind of flow of stitches goes over to the right, I'm going to complete this stitch so that when my thread ends, it's closer to the right, which is where the next stitch of this color in the row below will go. So I'm going to complete that stitch. I'm going to come over here and fill in this stitch. Okay, I've done those 2, and then I'm going to park it, and it is 2 below. So I'm going to park it right here. Now that one is a couple rows below, so I'm going to park that at the very bottom of the needle parker again. Okay, the last color we have pre-parked in row 3 is this color here. And now you'll see here that there's a couple different ways I could stitch this. Because row 4 has the same color directly underneath on the left side, it means I kind of want to end back at the left side. So I'm going to do half stitches across. So I'm going to do that first one, do the second one, do the third one, and I'm going to complete this stitch all the way at the end. That's this one here that I just marked off. Now you'll see that there's one stitch underneath in row 4 on the right hand side that I could do now if I wanted to, because otherwise I'm going to have to bring my thread all the way back over to the right side and then all the way back again to the left side. So I think that is what I'm going to do. And here's where I make exceptions to the rules. It's just kind of what works for my brain or what doesn't work. So I'm going to go ahead and make this stitch in row 4 right now so that I don't have to carry far the next time. And I feel okay doing that because I have all the stitches completed above it, and it is kind of like, it just makes more sense with the flow of the piece in my head. So I completed that stitch. Now I go back over here to make my final 2 sorry, getting my threads out of the way here. My final 2 stitches in that color. And because we are moving in 2 stitches, you can see we've now moved in, so there's only 8 stitches in row 3. That's because we're working on the diagonal. So that row is actually complete now. So we didn't even need any new colors. And I'm going to park that color directly under our last stitch because that's where the next one will go. And it is in the next row, so I'm going to park it in that top section there. And that's kind of how it works, basically. So I'm going to go ahead and do row 4 with you now. And this is 919. This is that same color that we've been working with that just has a few stitches here. And I'm going to fill in this last stitch. Now here's the tricky thing. So that color is completed. I could either end this thread here, or I could just bring it down and park it in the next diagonal where it belongs. And that's what I'm going to do. So that is 3 stitches from the top and 4 stitches from the side. So because we're not including this one here, it would be 1 stitch, 2 stitch, 3 stitch, 4 right here, and then 1, 2. So there's 2 stitches underneath of it and 3 stitches to the right. Is that correct? 1, 2, 3. Yes, that's correct. So I'm going to park it there. Now, because that's pretty far down and that is in the next diagonal, this is where I take my needle off the thread and kind of save it to use for another piece. And what I'll do is I just kind of tuck that parked thread over to the side here as much as I can to get it out of the way. And yeah, that's going to allow me to, sorry, I need to get my, I didn't do that right. Okay, this is not working out very well. This is not a very good example, but I think I'm nervous doing this on camera. I'm going to pull that thread all the way over here to the side and just kind of park it off to the side as much as I can so that it's out of the way, because that thread will not be worked with until the next diagonal. So then I come back up here to my parked threads, and this is the next one here. So this is 3 stitches over. This one here, 920. So I'm going to go ahead and do those 2 stitches, and you'll see that the next stitch I need to do is towards the left on row 5. So I'm going to do the half crosses over, half crosses back, and mark those two off, and I will park it in the next row underneath. And that's right here. And now because these two are in the next row, I'm going to start parking them up here again. Okay, now we're going to look at these two, the next symbol, which is the two diagonals. I am going to do the one that's on the left-hand side, the full cross, and move over to the right-hand side because that is closer to where I'll need to be for the next row. So I complete that stitch on the left-hand side and then complete the stitch on the right-hand side, making sure my threads don't get caught. Okay, and then I've got two choices of where I can park this. I can park it either on the right-hand side or on the left-hand side of where I am. It doesn't really matter in this case because it's kind of the same in either direction. So I'm going to just park this one to the left. I'm sorry, to the right, because yeah, like I said, it doesn't really matter in this case. It's about the same distance no matter which direction you're looking at. Okay, and then the final stitches we've got here in this row, this fourth row, are these two at the end, which are this same color. And I'm going to go ahead do those half crosses. And do the top leg. So that's those two stitches. Now you can see we've completed our first two steps. So we've moved over 2 stitches and did 2 rows in that fashion. Now we're going to do another step. So the next stitch of this color is actually 2 stitches in and 1 down. So right here. This will be our first or our next stitch in those colors. Okay, so now row 4 is complete and we're going to keep going. I think I'll try to complete this whole diagonal with you. If you don't want to stay and watch the rest of the time, you don't have to. It's just me talking and stitching, and I'm not even sure how well you can see or what all this is showing, but I'm just going to keep going with it. So I'll try to complete this first diagonal with you. So that first color here is the orange. And I'm going to try to bring this over here. Just make sure my thread is on the right side. And do this stitch on the edge. I don't know if you can hear the rain outside. The mic probably is not picking it up, but it's actually very peaceful. Now that I'm like situated and recording, it's like, this is rather peaceful again, which I like. So I'm gonna park this. It's 2 rows down, so it's not in the next exact row. And that means I'm gonna park it at the very bottom over here. And I'm gonna move on to the next color of what's parked here. And that's these double slashes here. So I'm going to complete this stitch and I'm going to move to the left and complete this next one. And so still, basically, I'm only working in rows of 10 or less. This diagonal obviously is very small because it's the first one, but I'm only focusing on 10 stitches at a time, and that feels very doable for full coverage. I don't have to worry about all the rest of them. So those 2 are completed. I'm going to park this in the row underneath where it needs to go. right here. And because that's the next row, and I will be using it soon, I'm going to park this closer to the top. So you can see that there. Okay, and then the next stitch I've got to do is this one here. It's this triangle. So I'm going to go ahead and complete this stitch. And I'm going to park it right underneath where it needs to go, and that's the next row, so I'm going to put that up here with those stitches. Okay, and the final one we've got here is this one that we have parked in this next row, and that's this color here. Now for this one, I am going to do this first stitch, and then I'm going to do the complete stitch, and then I'm going to go over to the right and complete this one. And the reason for that is that we've got some stitches on both sides, on the right hand side and the left hand side in the next row, and I just want to do those. That flow just makes more sense to me. Okay, and again there my camera storage got full, so hopefully, yeah, so we're back now. But I got cut off. I don't know what I was saying. I think I was saying that you could go any direction with where we were on this color and it would be fine. For me, it just makes more sense to do it this way. So I completed that one stitch and parked right underneath. Now this ends up actually being the color furthest to the right that I need to stitch in the next row. So I'm just going to continue with it. And I'm going to do these two stitches that are close to the right hand side. And then I'm going to come back over here and do the final stitch. Now, when I come back over here, because there are stitches that still need to be filled out to the right of this thread, this thread right here, there are stitches that need to be completed in here. So I'm actually not going to complete this stitch right now. Now, some people that might be crazy because you've already got the thread, the needle's in your hand. Why don't you just do that stitch? For me, because I like to work in these rows from right to left, I'm just going to park it and wait until I have the other two stitches completed first. So what that means is I'm going to find the next parked thread, and that's this one here. That's this triangle. And I'm going to complete that one next. Now from here, that is the only triangle in this diagonal, right? So we do have other triangles in the next diagonal, and I could park to the left or I could park down below. Because there's a bigger space between I'm going to choose to park it down below. The reason being I can kind of complete those stitches and kind of go down further, maybe a little bit. And I will start a new thread of this color anyway when I get to the top row here, so that will kind of be working down. So I'm just going to park underneath. And the nice thing about the grid lines here is that I know this will be the first stitch directly under in that same row. So it's going to go right here on the grid line because my first stitches are the grid line. So I'm going to put that here. And again, this is the next diagonal, so I'm going to take off my needle, put that aside to use again, and I'll try to do this a little better this time, but I'm just going to pull this thread over to the side, and it's going to stay there until we need it. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my row, and I'm going to stitch the next parked thread that we've got here, which is this light brown color, which is these two diagonals. Two slashes. This is actually kind of nice, this corner, because we haven't introduced too many new colors. It's been basically these these same kind of group of 4 or 5 colors, which is nice. So it's a lot of confetti, but it's also not, you're not changing colors every single row. So far that's nice for this part of the chart. We'll see how it continues. So I'm going to go ahead and do those 2 stitches, and I'm going to park my thread directly underneath. And I'm going to park this down here because that will be in the next row. And finally, this is the one that we waited on to do this last stitch. So now I'm ready to do it. And for me, it's like I kind of work in these diagonals and I have my blinders on, right? So I'm not looking at, you can see all these yellows that exist to the left of the diagonal line. I'm not even looking at those. Those don't even exist to me. All I'm looking at are the stitches that fall in my stair-stepper method of the diagonal. And so this stitch that I'm just completing here, I will mark off now so you can see that. We've now got 3 steps here going down. And so the next stitch that I do will be 2 stitches in. So I will park my thread here again to do the next step. And I'm just going to, that would be this stitch right here, but I'm just going to ignore all these other stitches that are right here. And you might say that's crazy because, again, your needle's already in your hand, but this is just the way that I choose to work it. I like to focus just on the 10 stitches in a row and not get sidetracked by all the other things. Some people like to color complete. Some people like to do all the stitches of one color in a 10 by 10 block. It really doesn't matter. It's whatever works for you. This is just kind of how I do it and how I enjoy it, and what I found really does work for me. So we're going to come down to this next row. This is what, row 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, row 7. And this is the stitch here. This is the color. So I'm going to complete that one. And here again, I have a choice of where I want to park or where I want to put the next stitch. And I think I'm actually going to park it to the left. And the reason being is I think it'll be easier to kind of complete this color in the top section up here, and then have this thread ready to do this stitch to the left and the remaining bottom stitches. So how I do that is I'm going to use this last stitch right here. If I can pull my needle up right here, that's like my counting point. So I'm going to say down 2, over 2, right here. And I always park in the bottom left corner just so I know where my thread belongs to, basically. Okay. And that is ready to be parked as well. So I'm going to just kind of pull that underneath all the other threads and pull it off to the side since we won't be needing it. We're going to move on to the next parked thread on the right hand side, and that's these slashes again. So I'm going to do this stitch and park it in the row directly underneath, because that's where the next stitch will be. And because that one will be in the next row of stitches, I'm going to pull it up here to the top and park it up there. We've only got this final color left in our diagonal of this row, of the 7th row. And here we do need to be working our way towards the right hand side for the stitches in row 8. So I'm going to complete this stitch here, and then I'm going to go complete this stitch on the right hand side. So I've now done those 2 stitches, and I'm going to park it underneath. And that is the next row. And because that is the stitch that's furthest to the right, I'm going to go ahead right now and just do those 2 stitches. Since I always start with whatever parked thread is closest to the right hand side, closest to my stitched area, And that's this color. So I'm just going to do those 2 stitches. Do you have any idea what this pattern is so far? In this tiny little corner of browns and a little bit of orange? If you can guess it from this, I would be very, very impressed. Okay, so I'm going to park that in the next row. Just place that over there. The next color we've got is these 2 slashes again. So I will complete that stitch. And then that will get parked underneath. And because that's getting parked underneath on the right hand side, I'm just going to go ahead and do that stitch because that will be the first one we get to anyway. And the stitch above is already stitched, so I feel fine about just doing that one. And then I will park this. So it's going to go right here. And that will be in the next diagonal. So again, I'm going to take my needle off. Now, I think I did make a mistake, not a mistake, but I think I took my needle off a little too early of this color right here. Because we have this color parked in this square, ready to go. And I took my needle off because I was thinking it was in the next diagonal since it's past the red line. But because we're doing the stair-step method, this one is actually included in this diagonal. So I'm going to go ahead and just stitch this one since we're already there. And that completes our 4th step. So you can see kind of the 1, 2, 3, 4 steps that we've got done. Now, there should be one more step to go. And this is where I sort of just kind of choose what I want to do for this. We're getting so close to the edge of the diagonal that it really doesn't matter that much if I complete it in the same fashion or not. So because I have these 2 stitches of 9/19 that I need to do right here, I probably am going to just include both of those in this current diagonal. So what that means is for this, I think this is row 9 now, I'm going to, first of all, use this color that we've got parked here. And technically that should be the end of our next step because we moved in 2 stitches. So that would be the end of our next step. And I would park this in the row below, but because that's all the way to the end, all the way to the right, I'm going to just do that stitch now while I've got it in my hand. And mark that off. And now I'm ready to park this. I can park it anywhere underneath that I want because these first 3 stitches on the next 10 by 10 block is all the same color. So I'm going to just park it here and take my needle off the thread because that will be saved for the next diagonal. And now I'm going to go back to these kind of 2 remaining stitches that we have here. And I'm actually just going to complete both of them, even though that doesn't follow the stair-stepper method completely and it kind of does go in a direct diagonal. I'm not too worried about the lines happening if I only do a few like this. I think it'll still be fine. Okay, then I'm going to park my thread from here. I'm going to go down 1 and over 1, 2, 3, 4. So down 1, over 1, 2, 3, 4. That's this one right here. And again, I'm going to take my needle off the thread. And just like that, our first diagonal is complete. So now I just kind of organize these a little bit more, pull them off to the side. And that's great. There's our first diagonal. We just did it. Let's see how many stitches we completed. We completed 61 stitches. Now, Typically this would go a little bit faster because we've been stitching for about an hour and only 60 stitches. But in the beginning, it's always slower when you're using new threads. Also, I'm very slow when I'm on camera, as you can see, kind of making more mistakes and everything. But yeah, first diagonal is done. So what I would do next is get ready to begin the next diagonal. So in the top row of this next diagonal, we don't have any parked threads because we don't have anything lingering from before. So again, I will just start in the upper right-hand corner, choose this first symbol, which is 720. And even though we have 720 parked down here later on, I'm still going to get a new strand of 720 and start that thread. And I'm going to use that for just this top section that moves over to the left. So I'm going to kind of keep that in mind as I work my way down and across, but that's my methodology for that. Now, sometimes in this method, you do have two strands of the same color that you're working in the same diagonal. And sometimes that's nice because you can kind of split them up and work in different sections. Sometimes it's annoying because you have two strands of the same color and you only have a few stitches left of that color. So you just kind of work around that as you get to it. But I hope this was at least semi-helpful, and I'm super excited we now have this piece started. I just can't believe it. I can't believe I'm actually doing this piece that I have had for so long and just never thought I would get around to stitching a gigantic piece like this that I loved from the very beginning when I started cross stitch. So yeah, I'm going to keep working on this the rest of this afternoon and probably most of the day tomorrow as well. And I hope that you enjoyed this little start with me and I hope you worked on a full coverage as we were stitching together. And I'm going to keep trying to get this video set up better or more beneficial for you. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this, if this was horrendous or if this sort of worked. I know some of you like to see the stitches up close, which is why I tried to include this video here, but I also wanted to show some of the patterns so you could see for this video kind of how I was stitching. And then I also wanted to be able to just talk with you and for you to see me too. So anyway, let me know your comments or if you have any suggestions for future videos like this. And I will definitely be doing more Stitch with Me's on this on this piece, because I really want to bring you along on this journey and I want you to kind of see it unfold as I'm stitching. I think that will be really fun. So that's all for me right now. Thank you so much for watching and have a lovely weekend. I'll see you next week. Bye.